your truest self, the truest, most powerful, most loving, most nurturing version of you is on the other side of being willing to look at those hard things and go, okay, I know there are things that I can do to help myself through this. I know there's help I need to get. And I just want to see women do that, where we don't slide into these years going, well, I guess my best years are behind me. No, they're not.
You might know me from this show, or maybe you've heard me speak at your church or in your community, but I started out as a writer. Writing is a great love of mine, and I've been doing it for about 20 years now. That's when my first book was written. It's still my great love, and I'm so excited to tell you that I have joined the Substack community, where you can read very raw and honest, and yes, unedited and unfiltered writing from me every week, where I sometimes put on my coaching hat and ask you questions to help you sort out life things. Sometimes I get really brutally honest about body issues and lies that I think secular culture is telling us in regards to that. And most of all, I seek to bring real biblical clarity to some of the things that are confusing us in our daily lives. If any of that sounds like it might be important to you or might be helpful to you in some way, head over to my Substack at letsbeclear.substack.com to see what I'm talking about over there. Dr. Edie Wadsworth is here. Oh my goodness. Hi, gorgeous.
Hi, Lisa. First of all, I didn't tell you in our first 3 beginnings how much I love your shirt. If you can't tell, I'm obsessed with the yellow myself, and you look fabulous. And it's so good to see you.
Thank you so much. First of all, I'm going to tell you my secrets. This is actually a dress that I made into a shirt because I'm sure you do this with your clothes too. I just do whatever I want. So
yes,
if it's a dress,
absolutely.
but I need to be sure. The other thing is, I had my colors done.
Okay.
And when, I always thought these things where people do people's colors, this is not a new thing. Now, just because TikTok.
I had it done in the 80s. Are you kidding me?
Right,
Yes.
exactly. But I went ahead and had this done not long ago. And so I will say that I've paid a little more attention to what are actually my colors.
Well, honey, that right there is stunning on you. It's for sure your colors.
Thank you. Canary yellow. I love it. So many things I want to talk to you about. I have to say that I have not talked in this microphone, Edie, for about 8 months, not for my own show. So I am rusty. We don't know how this is going to go. This could be like riding a bike and falling off a bike. We don't know, but you're here. You're here.
I'm so happy to be here. And I'm so proud of you for taking time off. And, I stalk you anyways, but I was stalking all of this stuff. And I'm like, that is amazing to just say, no, I need this. Maybe my business doesn't need this, or my ministry might not need this, but I need this. So by default, we need this. I love that. Proud of you.
Thank you so much. Well, it's been good and it's been hard, but things are often both of those things. Yes.
Yes, they are.
Yes.
All the best things.
So, okay, last night I was on social media and I was stalking you, and I noticed that you were in a position that I am also in. So I knew we would commiserate over this together. Your daughter is moving to New York City. And my daughter right now is on a plane going to Dallas for her senior year of college. And I'm telling you, Edie, it's like, I can't believe we've made it. We've made it. This will be her last year.
Yeah.
And sometimes I have thought that this would not be possible. I thought my heart would break when I was dropping her off. And so, it's this wild experience. You have multiple daughters. This is my only daughter. But it's this wild experience of her being an adult. We're now 2 adult women. And so we're in this space together of, enjoying being best friends, really. And
it's the literal best. It really is
the literal best. I was afraid to be a girl mom. I'll be honest, because I had 2 boys and I thought, will I ruin my daughter? I think that was the fear. Will I be a good girl mom? I didn't know if I could. I think we have a lot of baggage, a lot of us, from even, our relationship with our own mom. My mom is wonderful, but I don't think I was the best daughter. And so I thought, I don't know how I'll do. What do you have to say about the whole dynamic of being best friends with your grown daughters and how you even get there for moms who are like, I don't know if I can even do it?
Yeah, it's funny because after I got over the bitterness of like, feeling like I was investing so much time into these people and that I love so much, and then they become your best friends. And then you send them off and everybody else gets to enjoy it. I'm like, no, come back to me. I helped with that. So I just after I got over the bitterness of, oh, they want to move away and have their own lives. How dare they? As a matter of fact, my daughter, who is moving to New York City, just graduated from dance college. She just spent 3 months in New Hampshire right after dance college doing 3 musicals. She wants to dance on Broadway. So she's literally moving to New York City to follow her dream to dance on Broadway. And that girl knows how to work. She's so persistent. And when I was there yesterday saying goodbye, I thought I was okay. I've said goodbye before so many times. I mean, we nearly had an empty nest and until we adopted Tom. And so I'm used to the goodbye, but this felt different. It felt like there's like no end point when she's coming back. I even thought like I don't know if she'll ever like live here again. And I lost it in a way I haven't lost it in a long time. And I cried from Pittsburgh to the West Virginia line, and I just sobbed and let myself feel all the feelings. And it's part of it. I am so proud of her. And it's funny that you say that best friends, because she posted something yesterday and it was a picture that her boyfriend had taken of me. I was holding her hand. We were walking and I had my arm around my other daughter and she posted it and said, "These are my best friends." And I'm like, there's nothing, you couldn't give me $10 million
Nope.
for my daughters feeling that way about being with their mama. It
Nope.
is so what matters.
It really is. Gosh, it is such the best feeling in the world. It really, really is. And worth all the hard work. You're right, too. It's like you've raised your kids to be these independent folks, these people that go off and thrive, and we want them to be independent. And then we're like, but wait, we
But wait,
actually we actually do want you to also live next door. So how does that work? All the things.
I know I
Listen,
keep saying I'm going to have a compound and they're all going to come back and live with me. Is that wrong to have on my bucket list for life that we just have a big compound? Because I hope that's not wrong.
exactly. Oh my goodness. Okay, well, we were just talking about the fact that I put a pause on this show for essentially 8 months, and I thought long and hard about bringing it back. What my reason was, I'm a person who, I wouldn't say I always have to have a reason for something. My family might say, yes, you do, and sometimes that's really inconvenient. But I really do think a lot, Edie, about my why. And
Yeah.
so, when I thought about doing this show, doing a podcast, whatever work we do, it takes time. It takes time, consideration, all of the things that we do. And I think when we get older, we begin to go, like, what am I doing and why am I doing it? And what are the gifts God has given me? And how am I utilizing those in the best way possible? And so giving consideration, I don't have a reason to just want to talk into a mic. We got lots of people doing that. And is there a
Yeah.
reason for it? And I think, so for me, when I considered, do I want to bring this show back to talk about things that I think people need clarity on?
Okay.
And one of those things that I felt we really needed clarity on was about our body.
Okay.
And you were really the first person that I thought of
Mm,
to talk about this. And I have my reasons for it. And I'll get into more of that in just a minute. But here is one of the things. I
yeah.
don't have a girl crush on very many people, and I will say woman crush because
Yeah.
you're not a girl. I mean that with deep respect. So I don't have a woman crush on very many people, but I think you might be on my very short list. I'm going to tell you why. I think you're one of the most fascinating women that I know. And this is not a bio. I'm just rattling off your literal life statistics here. Here we go. You came from a world of poverty, alcohol, and violence. You became a medical doctor Then you left your medical practice to become really like a life coach, a wellness coach, I believe. You wrote a beautiful memoir. You really can write your butt off, which I love. You are a wonderful cook. I actually still make the salsa that you
Stop it.
I do. I love your salsa recipe. Now people are going to want that from me. You're a killer decorator. You can even just look at your space back there and people can see. People don't understand all the many talents that Dr. Edie has, actually. You have literally transformed your own body. And you have 9 children, including Tom, who you mentioned that you adopted after bringing into your family from an incredible, unique set of circumstances. Edie, I mean, your life, sis, your life. God has given you an incredible one, and you've really made the most of it. I want to know what drives you.
This is such a great question because for the first 40 years of my life, what drove me was overachieving, overfunctioning, over everythinging to prove my worth
Mm.
and to be accepted and to somehow feel like I could rise above, the circumstances that I was born with. And it was an insatiable, like literally, it was, you are never going to satisfy this. You can't do enough, be enough, become enough, earn enough, and when I had the epiphany, and I kind of got that epiphany when I was writing my memoir, I'm like, oh my gosh, like so many things in my life have been driven because I had not settled the question that God settled a long time ago of who I am and whose I am and my own worth in Him. Settling that and just believing Him, just believing His words about me, that He loves me, that I'm cherished, that I'm enough, really started to shift things for me. And since then, what drives me is helping other women know that as well.
Mm.
And, you talked about taking 8 months off. Girl, listen, I just took a month off, and taking time off for an over functioner, overachiever is really hard because you just have to sit with yourself. It has just been so good for me to learn how to do that, to learn how to rest, to learn how to enjoy my life. And I am kind of now working under this belief that the more I experience joy and peace and love and gratitude, the more everything grows without me trying, without me striving, without me overdoing it. And so that's the honest answer. It has been, I think I've always been this way. Like, I think there is a part of me that is always bubbling with ideas and always wants to do the next thing. And that part of me, once redeemed, is a beautiful part. But it's always my tendency to go back to, I have to be careful that I don't go back just to the sort of striving. And the proof of this, it's funny that you mentioned the body, because the reason I'm so obsessed with women getting healthy and well is because we don't even realize the damage that all of these patterns do to our body. So what I was doing to mine is driving myself into adrenal fatigue by over functioning, by overdoing it. I just had another bout with it literally like 6 or 7 months ago. And I thought to myself, gosh, here I am again. Like, and instead of doing that, I've just learned to be tender with myself. Like, of course, that's your tendency, but let's, instead of using the body, I love how I've heard you say this or read your writing on this, that it's not something to be worked on, but to be lived in. And, I read a book a few years ago called The Theology of the Body, and it just shifted the way I thought about the body. Like, one of the things that he said in that book is our bodies are where Christ makes the invisible visible, the mystery of Him, where He makes that visible. And I've really had such a heart shift in the past few years about that. But yeah, what drives me is that, like, I know that women live in the pain that I lived in for so long, and I can't not share what I have learned and know about how to help them through that.
Mhm. Oh gosh, Edie, that's like the ultimate use of your life. I think when we learn and when we share, that's the way I view even like writing. It's not like I have such a desire to just sit and show you my diary. Like, who wants to be that vulnerable? What I have a desire to do is say, here's what God has shown me, and allow me to open up my life, even the parts that feel scary, but to share, because what kind of a life would I have if I just keep it to myself? That's really small. I think even you just saying right now, I found myself in that place again, and just the frustration piece, and you sharing that, something about that is really helpful, because I think when someone looks at you, someone who has really been a warrior, you have gone through so many things in your life. I know, I've read your memoir. I have been your friend for years, even just from afar. I've watched
Yeah.
your life. I know you've transformed your body. I've watched that. I admire that so much. But I also admire you saying, I've also found myself going back to that place and having to realign.
Yep.
There's something about that, Edie, that's really powerful, because when someone has achieved, or someone really feels like they're on a good road, I think our tendency is to go, well, they've got it. They're good. Why can't I kind of
Why
just,
can't I do it?
why can't I keep it together? Why do I keep failing in this area, or I'm not and so I think there's something that is a real gift for teachers,
Yeah.
for leaders, to say, by the way, I kind of had a relapse yesterday, or, I'm
Yeah.
not doing so good. My marriage actually isn't perfect. I'm actually kind of failing as a mom at the moment, and I think there's something really powerful. So I appreciate you saying that. I said one of the reasons that I wanted you to come on, and you were really the first person, was because you've helped me. You've helped me from afar to know what to do in a practical way. I've paid cash money for products that you've put out, because you are a person that really helps, especially in dealing with menopause. This,
Yeah.
what we're going to talk about all today isn't all about menopause, but that is a real struggle that a lot of women have. And honestly, men, especially men that love women that are going through menopause,
Yeah.
also have to deal with as well. I have even said to my husband, I want you to Google menopause, and I want you to read about it, which probably isn't the best way to do it, but because they don't understand it either. And
Yeah.
my menopause story is kind of crazy. How many times do people say to you, I have this crazy menopause story? Are there any menopause stories that are just like, not hard? I doubt it.
Oh, it is so crazy. And the thing of it is, like for me, for those of us who are in the throes of it, like perimenopause starts even way before that. And you
Right.
just think, man, I'm not doing well. I'm kind of going crazy. Like you don't even know that's what it is. You don't have a name for it.
Yeah.
And when I look back, I go, oh, that like, because I'm 54, I look back and go, oh, that started 10 years ago.
Yes.
The process of it started. And if I had had a name for it, and if I had known, like, oh, I have the capacity and the responsibility to make this way worse or way better, I don't think I would have struggled nearly as much. But I also know that that's how it happens for most women. It's just something that, like, if you look at the studies that people do in health, the studies are all done on men. There's not a lot of teaching about it. There's not a lot of talk about it. I mean, it's more so now than ever. But even 10 years ago, you couldn't open your Instagram app and somebody was saying, here's some help with these crazy symptoms that you're having. So I just want to keep bringing it to the forefront because, listen, here's what I truly believe. When we head into these years of our lives, these can be some of the most powerful, transformative years. We have so much hard earned wisdom,
Yeah.
hard earned lessons, and love to share with the world. But that stuff will take you out. If you don't know what's happening and if you don't know how to get yourself some help and how to create a supportive environment for yourself, that's what I see all the time, that women count themselves out. They go, well, now I can't. They sort of count out their gifts and they're like, I'm just going to have to sit this one out. I'm like, no, this is when we need you most. This is when we need your voice. This is when we need your gifts. And so helping women through this period so that they can come out of the other side really living. And I know it's trite to say this, but your truest self, the truest, most powerful, most loving, most nurturing version of you is on the other side of being willing to look at those hard things and go, okay, I know there are things that I can do to help myself through this. I know there's help I need to get. And I just want to see women do that, where we don't slide into these years going, well, I guess my best years are behind me. No, they're not.
Yes. I think the reason why people had this aversion to the idea of your truest self, Edie,
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
because that's sort of been hijacked by a secular culture, that phrasing, your
Yeah.
truest self, for something that is not grounded in biblical truth, right? And
Yes.
so, especially for people who listen to this show that very much care about biblical fidelity and Jesus,
Yeah.
and as you do as well, you
Yes.
know that your true self, your real self, who you're meant to be, there's nothing wrong with talking about that, because we know who that is the person that God created you to be.
Yep.
The person that God put breath in, who he gifted, he made in the image of God himself. And so all of that is actually super important to talk about. It's just
Yeah.
in the context of what's grounded in biblical truth. And so I don't think we should be afraid to talk about that. I think we just know that the source is the source that we draw from here. I love that you were talking about how it's never too late, because that is why I wanted to call the show, Yes, You Can Still Change Your Body.
Yep.
Because I think that is what a lot of people in their 40s and 50s and beyond begin to believe, this sort of lie of, well, I might as well just give up. Let me just go ahead and give up. Like, I was in my prime in my 20s and 30s, and let me just look back at those old pictures and, think about how great it was. But this is where I am now. Absolutely not. And that's why I wanted you to come on here, because you have literally transformed your entire body. What was like the moment where you said, I'm not going to settle. I'm not settling into this? Because you knew a lot. I mean, you were a medical doctor.
Yeah.
So, but you were still in ruts.
Oh, terrible. And when I tell you what happened to me is I had a health crash. I didn't know it at the time. I was probably in early perimenopause
Yeah.
and I was writing my book and I was confronting things that I had never confronted. So I kind of slid into this weird, depression, anxiety. I was worried about writing the story. I was worried about not writing the story. What's it going to be like to look people in the eyes when they know my story? What's it going to be like to face my family? And what happened is my health crashed. And the only way I knew how to cope with that was caffeine and food. I probably would have become a honky tonker if I wasn't a Christian, but get on the whiskey or something. But my vices were more like overspending, overeating, just not, I wasn't exercising back then. And I just fell into a lot of bad habits, drinking Diet Coke and coffee, just, basically all day. And when I went to the doctor, he diagnosed me with a bunch of things. And I was like, I am 43 years old. Like, what the heck is happening? And gave me a pile of prescriptions. And I had been out of medical practice for a few years already, but I knew in my heart, I hadn't even found holistic health and natural medicine yet. But I knew in my heart that people who just went on a bunch of medications for a bunch of different symptoms, it doesn't work. I knew that much because even when I was practicing medicine, I knew that the answer is so much of the answer is lifestyle, not always for everything, but so much.
Mm.
And thank goodness I just didn't accept it. I'm like, I don't think, I mean, they kind of, you know how it is. You go in the doctor, they diagnose you with a bunch of things, they give you this, and like, well, you'll probably have to take this for the rest of your life. And I just started digging into research. I fell into a rabbit hole of natural health and holistic medicine and really just began to slowly change my perspective, change my life. I mean, the first few things I did was to kind of give up Diet Coke and look at the stuff that was obvious, all the sugar I was eating. So I kind of started with that. And it was not a miraculous overnight transformation. It was me being willing to confront the things that I was doing that were contributing to all the things that were wrong with me. And it took about a year before, I mean, I started feeling better, 6 weeks, couple of months, I started feeling better. But it took about a year before I was like, oh my gosh, like this works. Like when you do these things, this really works. And if you look back at pictures of me back then, I sometimes post them on Instagram. I don't even look like the same person.
I know.
I literally have changed my whole life and body. What I find often with people in medicine is that we think we know. Like, because I remember thinking when I started hearing about all this natural health stuff, I'm like, well, if it was that good, I would already know about it because I'm a medical doctor. Except, no, you wouldn't, because you're not trained in any of that. So I had to humble myself, relearn everything I had been taught. I took deep dives into gut health and, how to heal my thyroid and why did I have so much inflammation. And I just started relearning so much about the body and so much about how the mind body connection. That's how I got into life coaching. I'm like, oh, there's a lot of stuff I can do physically to help myself feel better. But man, there's a lot of stuff in this mental emotional space that, these patterns that I've had for years that I know are keeping me stuck. And so it's just been a process of relearning. And I feel like that's so much as believers, our whole life is that repenting, relearning, being willing to say, I don't know it all, being willing to say, like, yeah, I learned a lot in medical school. I gave my 20s to learn all of that. But what I learned how to do was prescribe pharmaceutical drugs. I didn't learn how to keep people healthy. I didn't learn how to, do all the things that I do now. And that was a big turning point for me. And it's funny because 11 years later, I have a natural health physician now, and I went to see her a while back, and I really don't have anything on that original list that I was diagnosed with. All of those things I have been able to, with lifestyle and exercise and weight training and walking and supplements and mindset work and emotional health work, I have been able to help my body heal. I do believe that God creates us with all these tools to heal ourselves if we give ourselves what we need. Sometimes we do need pharmaceuticals, but a lot of times what we need is to go out for a walk and to deal with our stress and to feel our emotions and to renew our minds and to eat food God made. And, and so it's been a real humbling learning curve for me, really.
Mhm. I think it's so fascinating that all of this process, I'm sure it wasn't all from your writing of your memoir, but that was a major
Oh,
catalyst,
huge.
which
Yeah.
I completely understand because so much came up for me as I was writing, particularly The Hard Good, which was a book that dove into a lot of things about my father and honestly made me confront a lot of things that I haven't wanted to talk about for a very long time. And there was a lot there that I think made me realize for the first time the mind body spirit connection. It's almost like God actually knew what was going to be happening with us in all of those ways, the interconnectedness of the way that we're created. And you know what's crazy, Edie, is so I just spent the whole summer writing a Bible study about the body.
I
And
that I cannot wait.
Edie, it changed my entire life. Like I can't overstate how much it changed my life. I feel like it was a rebirth in a way. Like I'm just now I'm a baby. I'm a baby learning.
Yeah.
But it made me go back to creation and learn for the first time. And in my office, I remember one day as I was writing, I had the most incredible therapy session with the Lord. And it was like he took me back to the very first time that I disconnected from my body.
Yep.
And I was 9. I was
Yep.
9. And that from that time, different parts of my body I treated in compartmentalized ways. And,
Yes.
a lot of us have read the book, The Body Keeps the Score, and I think it's interesting how much we've read that. Like I've read that years ago, and there were parts that really resonated with me. But I think when you look at it in such a biblical way, the whole body theology from a
Yes.
biblical way, and you understand how it's interconnected, and you actually have lived it. Like you went on this journey, and maybe in the beginning it was about, let me try cutting out Diet Coke and sugar and see what that happens. And you researched it from a medical perspective. But what you've found through all of it is it really goes back to the way that God created us. And that's what's so fascinating to me. How do you think you've learned with body keeping the score that
Yeah.
to be true of like the trauma that you held that you didn't even realize through the years?
Yeah. It's funny when you say disconnected because I can remember when I disconnected from my body and just lived from here up.
Yeah.
And I did that because it was necessary at the time. It was how I kept myself safe.
Yeah.
You know, it was how I could keep going and, sort of like, oh, this isn't a safe place to be. So let's just disconnect. I remember that very distinctly. And the thing that I don't think we realize is that if you don't deal with that, what will happen is your body will continue to try to get your attention. Will do
Mhm.
it in such a myriad of ways. When I started doing work on my past, I realized how much I had repressed. One of the most profound things that happened to me is I I grew up with an alcoholic father who I adored. But what the message that I took from my relationship with him is I'm not loved. I don't have this role in my life that's so important. And I was doing a form of therapy, which is like a more of a body type therapy than just talking. And I was doing a therapy session with someone back then, and she asked that, you can do muscle testing where you kind of ask the body. She was asking me the question, but at the same time, she was kind of doing some muscle testing. And she asked me, are you angry with your dad? And I
Mm.
said no. And my body said yes.
Wow.
And it was one of the most profound things that I've ever experienced because it was the first time where I was allowed to say, I have anger
Wow.
because of this. And it was so profoundly healing to acknowledge myself, to stop ignoring myself, to acknowledge the trauma, to acknowledge, of course, that was really hard. Of course, you had to disconnect from your body. And it's okay now. You're safe here. You're not 8 years old in a situation that nobody would ever wish on their 8-year-old.
Yeah.
And that was such a profound turning point that I thought, oh my gosh, what else am I ignoring?
Yeah.
What else have I not allowed myself to say or feel? And it's interesting because even when I kind of had another little mini crash, not crash, but I knew that my health wasn't great earlier this year. And so when I went to seek help for that, one of the things that I was holding is that we were getting close to Tom's final adoption. And I had never really allowed myself for it to be hard for me because I felt like if I acknowledge that this whole thing has been hard for me, it's a betrayal of him and
Yeah.
how hard his life has been. And it was so healing for me to say, no, this has been hard for me too. And I'm grieving what my life would have been. And I'm grieving how this has changed my life. And that's okay too. And I can hold space for that while I hold space for his trauma and how hard this has been for him. And just that one acknowledgement of myself. I had been dealing with a weird sinus infection for like 4 months.
Wow.
And when I finally allowed myself to say the things that I had not allowed myself to say, that stupid sinus infection cleared up in like a week. And
Wow.
I'm like, when am I going to learn this lesson that you are one? God created this body as one. And when
Yeah.
you continue to deny yourself, ignore yourself, it's not good. We have to be willing to say the thing on our hearts that feels hard to say. Find a space where you can say it. Get yourself a therapist, a coach. I think that's why I'm so passionate about helping women and creating a space where they can, with compassion for themselves, say the things that have been hard for them to say or acknowledge. We go through times where it's hard in parenting, it's hard in marriage. I think we're afraid that if we say it's hard, well, that means I'm not a good wife, I'm not a good mom. No, it means
Yeah.
you're a human being.
Yeah.
And it's okay to acknowledge these seasons, these times in life that feel hard. And as I get better at doing that, my health gets exponentially better as I allow myself to process my emotions. But what I also realize is that it works both ways, that my mindset around things affects my health. So yes, I want to acknowledge that I feel full of grief, I feel sad. But how am I contributing to that by focusing on a mindset or a way of thinking that's not helping me? And so I think it works both ways. And we have to be able to acknowledge where we're suppressing things, where the body is holding on to things. But how are we contributing to that by holding on to a mindset or a way of thinking that's not helping us either?
It's so true. I think we also think, Edie, that if we actually speak it, like if we actually say it, then absolutely everything will unravel. Like
Yes.
everything we work so hard to hold so tightly will unravel. When in actuality, we are unraveling. We
Yes.
are unraveling inside. There have been times because I will be honest, I'm always the strong friend. I'm really the one in my family who is the one to go to because I'm going to be there. I'm the strong person. I am the strong person in nearly every situation. And when you are that person, you just feel the weight of that often. Like I can't let down, because if I let down, then everybody that is counting on me, what are they going to do? Well, I mean,
Yes.
it's like sort of this false savior complex, right?
It
And I think
sure
a
is.
lot of us as women have it.
Yeah.
But there have been times, Edie, that I will literally be holding on to something that I'm dealing with, and I'll look down at my hands and they'll be balled. They'll be in fists,
Yeah.
because I can't even unravel, I can't even unlock my own hands. And
Right.
so even practices like prayer with open hands, there's something about that. It's literally everything you do in your body that says openness, that says willingness, that says surrender. For me, the word surrender is just like, that's been like a dirty word in my life for so often, because I don't want to surrender anything. I don't want to surrender
Yeah.
my will. I don't want to surrender my time. I don't want to surrender my vulnerability. I don't want to surrender anything, because surrender feels like I'm giving you the license to hurt me, or I'm giving you the license to take from me. And so I think if we will really realize, however we are, however our personality is, how much it has contributed to what we've held inside of our body toxically, it really does matter in all the ways. As a busy woman on the go, let me tell you about something that has been a huge game changer for me: the Dwell Audio Bible app. I've been using Dwell for years and got my whole family using it. It's such a helpful tool for anyone who wants to grow spiritually and get in those important spiritual rhythms like Bible consumption, but finds ourselves missing days, sometimes weeks at a time. Dwell helps create that consistency so many of us crave. There are many reasons I personally love Dwell: being able to choose and customize my listening experience by which voice I prefer, the background music I like while Amber reads me the Bible, the speed of the audio, and even incorporating a time of silence and reflection between verses or chapters. An audio Bible has never been more customizable. From sleep to scripture playlists to Bible in a year listening plans, Dwell has truly thought of everything. If things have gotten stale for you and you need fresh wind in your Bible reading time sales, I highly recommend the Dwell Bible app. As our exciting title Jesus Over Everything season sponsor, Dwell is graciously allowing me to offer you 25% off yearly access to Dwell, or 50% off Dwell for life. Both are such incredibly low prices, it's well worth it. Go to dwellbible.com/Joe to receive your discount today. Trust me, you're going to love Dwell like I do. So let's say I come to you for coaching. What is the one thing in your experience? Because I know you've like talked to so many people. The
Mm-hmm.
one thing that I'm not asking about, but you from years of coaching experience know I really need to be asking about. I really need to be talking about. I'm not asking you about it, but you're like, oh, she needs to be talking to me about this. but she's not even asking me about it. What is the one thing?
For me, what I have learned in the women that I coach is the key to it is the emotional piece.
Okay.
And everything you said about being the strong one so resonates with me. And what I have had to learn over these past few years is that what that looks like is even when you said, we're afraid it's going to unravel, you got to be willing to let it all unravel.
Yeah.
Let it unravel and let God remake it.
Yeah.
Let it unravel, expose it.
Yeah.
And nothing that has the power over you if you're willing to expose it. And so my first layer of that was I didn't want anybody to really know my story. So let's just expose that. So, okay, and then what's the next thing I'm trying to protect? I didn't want everybody to know that, you read off this list at the first of all these things that I've done. What I know secretly is that I did so many of those things out of overachieving, trying to get approval. I don't want anybody to know that. So let me reveal that. And I think it's that thing that we're afraid of. And for most women, it's emotions, and it is not being willing to really process the emotions that we have. I think there's so much wisdom in emotions, but there's only wisdom on the other side of allowing it and processing it and owning it. And then you can move on to where you create so much emotional resilience. So for me, emotions were never safe. I was just like operating in my head, keep going, keep achieving, keep doing, keep, grinding. And my body was then responsible to hold all of this. Well, what about this grief? What about this hurt? What about this disappointment? What about this wound? What about this? And I was like, no, you just got to keep that down there because we got to keep going. And I think so many women are operating like that. And if you want to operate in your full power, you've got to be willing to open up to really the truth of your life. There's nothing more true, and it doesn't matter what the thoughts are that are causing it, but there's nothing more true than the way you feel right now. Because it doesn't even matter if you should feel that way, but this is the way I feel. And we so often just won't acknowledge it. We just repress it. We eat over it. I think this is the source of why so many women can't get healthy. You can't process your life, then you're going to store so many things. Often too much weight is one of those things. It kind of helps us hide the things that we're trying to hide. And I have just learned in my life that as I open up, as I become more vulnerable, as I become transparent, as I live my life in this I love what you said about open-handed. I teach this to my clients all the time. Hands open. What needs to come out so that all the good things can come in? And for most women, especially most women of faith, that has not been a safe thing. That has not been okay. It hasn't been okay to say that we're struggling in some area. It hasn't been okay to, confront the things from our past. It hasn't been okay to say, I'm not okay.
Yeah.
Especially for women leaders. And one of the most powerful things that I've ever been able to do is just be very vulnerable and transparent. And it's different than sort of living with your emotions on your sleeves. It has a different energy than that. It's a very powerful thing to do when we can, in the presence of other people, admit what we're struggling with, admit the things that we're feeling, so that we can move past it, so that we can, again, I feel like in my life, I really learned to create so much emotional resilience, but that came when I was willing to say, I've been hiding this, I've been keeping this a secret, I've been trying to pretend like I'm not this, and it just doesn't work over the long haul. And if you want to really use your gifts to the fullest, that requires a lot of energy. And what I found is that I was taking up so much of my life's energy trying to hide away these things that I didn't feel like were acceptable, these things that had happened to me, these things that I was struggling with. And now I don't have the energy of trying to keep all that inside and keep all that in check and keep my image in a certain way. So I've got so much energy. It just unlocked so much energy for me to actually create the things that God's called me to create, to be the person he's called me to be, because I'm not using so much of my life's energy to sort of protect myself and make sure the image is right and whatever. I don't care about any of that anymore. I just want to live a true, whole, vibrant, joyful life. And sometimes that means grieving, and sometimes that means being sad, and sometimes that means being angry. And All of those are good gifts from God if we learn how to allow them and process them and let them be the fuel that fuels a life that we really do want to live.
That's actually so powerful and so true when you are crowded with all of the other stuff that you're trying to do. You really don't have the space. You don't have the space for health. So,
Yep.
you're the words that you're saying of like, well, I don't have time to do this practice or do that or whatever. You're actually probably in some ways telling the truth, although we do make time for what is important to us. But it is true. Because you are holding on to so many things, but what kind of time would you have if you gave those things up that aren't helping you in any regard? Oh my goodness, it's so true. Okay, so I want to rapid fire.
Yes.
I'm going to rapid fire some words. I want
Yep.
you to rapid fire back to me what comes to mind. Now, I
Okay.
realize because I have taken your courses, I have
Yep.
watched them. So I know
Yep.
you could go all day long on these subjects. Just give me like a nugget because I
Okay.
want people to hear. And let me tell you something. You have got to listen when Dr. Edie starts talking about these things. You have got to take one of her courses. You have got to get one of the things that she does on these subjects because they are brilliant. They will help you. I'm telling you, she has helped me so much in a practical way, especially
Mm.
in this season of menopause.
Yeah.
So just tell me what you think. Rapid
Yeah.
fire. Cortisol.
Yeah, cortisol is my best friend because this is what I struggle with. So cortisol is the hormone that your body makes under stress, and it is so bad for us to live under chronic stress, and we do it in ways that are not we don't even realize it. And you cannot be healthy if your body is continually pumping out stress hormones. So you got to be honest with yourself. This is my hill to die on because it's what I struggle with. And I am constantly putting myself in situations where I'm more stressed than I should be. And
The what
probably a lot of you are too.
Yes, the what you taught on this, literally, I went and told my whole family about, and it has really, really helped so much. Inflammation.
Yes. This is another one for me that this is actually what got me awake to my own health problems is I was so inflamed. And foods that you're eating inflame you, ways that you're living, too much stress, too much sugar, very inflammatory. And most of us are living with a low level of inflammation that we're not even aware of. And here's the kicker there's a new term called inflammaging. The reason we age is because of inflammation. So you want to reverse age. You figure out what you're doing in your life, what you're eating, what you're not doing, maybe not doing processes that get rid of inflammation, like good deep sleep. But you want to reverse age, deal with inflammation in your life.
Yes. Sugar.
The first thing I have my clients to do when they want to make change is do 30 days of no flour, no sugar. And you'll see real quick how addicted you are to sugar. It's in everything you eat. Most people's diets are so full of hidden sugar that we don't even realize it. It's not just you eating donuts and, or whatever. And I have like a genetic predisposition to loving sugar. So for me, this is one that I have to be so careful about. And one of the things that I do to combat this is weight train. So if you're a person who tends to love sugar, first of all, just do yourself a favor and just do 7 days without it and see how hard it is. You'll see how addicted you are to it. The other thing is building muscle. It'll help you switch your metabolism to a way of burning these carbs, burning the sugar in a way. So for me, it's been really watching the sugar, but also weight training.
Okay. Magnesium oil.
I'm obsessed with magnesium. I do magnesium mostly in the form of supplements these days. I take 3 different kinds of magnesium. I'm completely obsessed. I tend to be a person, if you're a person of high stress, you tend to, even if you're taking magnesium, it's hard to keep your magnesium levels up. So I am obsessed with magnesium. I take magnesium threonine right before I drink my coffee in the mornings because it can really help you and I love having a cup of coffee. I don't drink coffee all day like I used to. And then I do magnesium salts at night. And then I take another specific magnesium at night for sleep. Magnesium, it's the supplement that I'm most obsessed with.
Okay. So if I just spray the magnesium oil on my feet, that's probably not going to be enough.
Probably not.
Okay. Okay.
No, you probably need more magnesium.
Okay. Sunshine.
Oh, huge, huge, huge. We have been fed this lie, you guys. We're now all afraid of the sun. You need sunshine without sunscreen. You need it on your skin. Your eyes need sunshine in the mornings to regulate your circadian rhythm. We need to be outside 10 times more than we are. I think there is something about indoor ambient light, controlled temperatures. It is not good for us. Get yourself outside as much as you can. For somebody like me, I'm sure you too, I work from home on this computer a lot.
Yep. Yep.
And so I have to be very intentional about going outside, I love spending long stretches of time outside. The difference in the temperature, the actual sunshine. I'm obsessed with essential oils. They're all outside. The trees give them off. The flowers give them off. So many good things that God made are found outside. Sunshine being one of them. We need to stop being so afraid of the sun. I think it's not the sun that's given us so many problems, but the things we're putting on our skin combined with the sun. So I really actually almost never wear sunscreen. And I go outside all the time. And I think it is so good for us we get that natural vitamin D there, but just so many other benefits. Get in the sun.
Sleep.
I just recorded a podcast on sleep. Ms. Lisa. I'm obsessed with sleep. I read a book years ago called Why We Sleep. That book changed my life. I started mouth taping because I was kind of a mouth breather. So breathing through your nose while you sleep will change the structure of your face. It will change your health. So figure out if you're a mouth breather. If you are, buy some mouth tape on Amazon and train yourself to breathe through your nose while you sleep. It will drastically increase the quality of your sleep. The amount of deep sleep, and I wear an Oura ring so I can track how much deep sleep and REM sleep I get. The amount of deep sleep you get every night really determines so much about your health. It's when your body detoxes. It's when you make your hormones. Sleep has been something that I've had to train myself to do. I used to say, I don't need sleep. If I just get 5 or 6 hours, and I would wake up with ideas and I just belittled sleep. I'm like, I just am one of those people who doesn't need sleep. If you're saying that to yourself, that is false. If you don't sleep, you die. And you sleep 6 hours a night versus 7 or 8 hours of a night, you die 6 years younger. The studies show over and over, we have to have sleep. We have to have good sleep. So prioritize sleep.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. I'm going to make my husband listen to that for sure. Prayer.
Prayer. Okay. Can I confess something? I am Lutheran. So I am a very traditional Christian. I go to a church with a pipe organ, and the way we think about prayer is very different than the way most evangelicals think about prayer. Most of the prayers that I say and speak are written prayers. I don't do a ton of extemporaneous praying like most people would think. And I'm obsessed with the Lord's Prayer. So as a Christian and as a Lutheran, I say the Lord's Prayer all the time. I pray the Lord's Prayer over Tom at night. And I'm obsessed with the prayer that Jesus prayed. So I'm obsessed with prayer, but maybe not in the same way as other people. I love reading prayers that theologians have written that help me, because those are usually based on scripture, that help me sort of say back to God his words to me, that help me believe what he actually says about me. And so I love prayerful meditation. I actually write some meditations that are based on scripture. So I love it. I think we're in prayer way more than we think, but I also love, the old prayers and reading prayers from theologians who really know the scriptures way better than me.
I can't think of a better prayer to model after than the Lord's Prayer. I mean,
Yep.
my goodness. And Edie, as I've gotten older, for me, prayer is much more about listening than
Yeah.
it is about,
Yes.
trying to come up with a lot of words. And so my prayers have changed a lot through the years myself. What is one thing every person should start with to to change their body to be all that it can be? It's not about wearing a size.
Yep.
I tell you, I have lots of not just feelings, but convictions about the way that we talk about bodies, from complimenting people's weight loss and feeding into that whole just societal, you must be skinny, you must be this certain size, scales and numbers. And I'm very adverse to things like that. But as far as wanting to change our body to be all that God has created us to be, because a lot of us are just not living to our potential in that way, honestly. What is something we can start with if we're like, I'm very motivated, I'm very inspired by what Dr. Edie is saying today? What's something we could do today?
I will tell you what I think is the easiest, simple place to start. But I first want to start by saying this. When I think about this topic, what I think about is not what my body looks like in clothes. What I think about is how I want to use my body. I want to be able to keep my grandbabies on Friday and get down on the floor and carry them both at one time and dance around and have dance parties. And so the things that I do to discipline my body, and there's this quote from Theology of the Body. One of the quotes in there was that self-discipline is not needed because the body is evil. The body should be disciplined with honor because it's worthy of honor.
Yes.
And looking at it from that standpoint and with the outlook of, I just hosted a live event and we danced for 3 hours, the opening night of the live event. I want to be able to dance and play and run and hike. And when my kids ask me if I'll, run a half marathon with them, I want that to be a possibility. So the reason I do it is because I want to be able to say yes to my life. I want to be able to have the stamina to do the work that I do. And then when my husband comes home and says, hey, you want to go out on the boat and go wake surfing? I want to say yes. So my why for doing it is because I want to say yes to the biggest, most joyful, most active version of, me that I can be. Now, with that said, the things that have made the biggest differences for me, really, I would say ever, have been just simple walking.
Yeah.
And, it's funny because I come from very poor people who walked everywhere they went. I was just with my aunt and she was telling me a story about my papa. And she's like, yeah, he just he walked down this road. He would walk like 3 miles to the store in the morning and then he would walk back. And so I come from a people of walkers. If you look at Jesus and the disciples, they walked everywhere. Yeah. And I know that, I've heard podcasts of you doing where I don't know if you guys already done your walk. Have you done
Not
your...
yet. Yeah, but
okay.
we're walking.
So I know you're a walker. And to me, it has become like a way of meditation, a way of, I listen to a lot of audiobooks. I do a lot of prayerful, meditative walks. I do all kinds of walks. But walking for me feels like it's so accessible to most people. And even though I'm obsessed with weight training too, I know that can be something for some people that's kind of down the road. So walking, if you're able to walk, I think it is the easiest way. It's literally in the last year, I have transformed my body more with walking maybe than anything else. And I just love it. I walk a lot. I walk different times a day. And it's like my go-to, like, hey, you want to go for a walk? If a friend calls me and wants to do something, I'm like, yeah, you want to go for a walk?
Yes.
So it's been a great way to do that.
It is such a good social interaction. I mean, you have the best conversations with people when you're walking. My daughter and I were talking about when we were quarantined during COVID, and every day, because what else was there to do? But
Yeah.
we did so much walking together, and we bonded so much. I think she was a senior in high school that year, and there was a park near our house, and they had like this outdoor walking trail, and we walked so much that senior year, and we talked about everything. And I would not give anything for that time with her because we just did so much walking. Something else I learned from you was after meal walking. And I used to never do that. I would, because you have a meal and then you're like, the last thing you feel like doing is getting up and walking or doing anything. You're like, oh, let me go sit my butt down on the couch. I'm in a, coma after I just had that meal. But now, because of you, Dr. Edie, I go and I do at least a 5-10 minute walk after every single meal. I learned that from you. Thank you. And I just feel so much better because it's just, even though that's not like a big walk I do during the day, I just make sure I move after any kind of meal, even if I'm in a parking lot of a restaurant. I'm like, I've got to do a little bit of a walk here after I just ingested all of that food. So it just feels good. It just feels really, really good. Yeah. So thank you for that.
Such a great way to balance your blood sugar. And I don't know. I just think that training yourself to do it, because I think we think if I'm going to go for a walk, I need a half hour. No, you don't. Go 5 minutes. And When I'm at home and I'm like, oh, I've got like 5 minutes till my next call or whatever, I'll go outside, get some sunshine, go for a quick walk. So don't tell yourself that you need a ton of time. You
So
don't.
good.
And, people ask me, how do you seem to so easily get so many steps in? It's because I don't tell myself I need a half hour. I just do a lot of short walks. And then, usually once during the day, I will go for a longer walk, but I do a lot of shorter walks. And this is another hack that I have is I just love walking in my house. So I go up and down my stairs. If somebody says, oh, I think I might have left, you know how you'll try to get other people in the house to go do something for you. Hey, can you run upstairs and get I always take that as, oh no, this is going to give me so many more steps. And so I'll do that when I'm parking somewhere. I'm like, oh, I'm going to park way far back. This little trip to Walmart is going to give me like 2,000 steps. And so I just look at it a little bit, gamify it for myself. And by the end of the day, I almost never have to go, oh, I need some more. I always get plenty of steps. I read a study a while back where even if you're going to the gym, if you're not getting a baseline of 8,000 steps a day, even the workouts that you're doing, you don't get the maximum benefit from them. And I think we're going to see in the next few years so much more research come out about walking and just in general, staying active and keeping our bodies moving. And I'm just so thankful that it's something that I picked up over the last couple of years.
Well, I am so thankful for you. I am so thankful that you came on the show. This is something I've wanted for a very long time. And boy, I'm just grateful to have you on here. Your wisdom, your heart, just what you just bring to the table is crucial in these times. So you've got to follow Dr. Edie Wadsworth on all the socials. Also, highly recommend you being a part of her coaching and all of the courses that she offers. I'm telling you, I have been a student of hers, and just the practical things that she brings to the table have been exponentially helpful to me. So thank you, my friend Edie, for being on the show. It has been a real joy.
Thank you, Lisa. I love you so much. I love the work you do in the world. I'm so glad you're back. I'm so glad we have your voice to help us navigate through these crazy times we're living in. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Jesus Over Everything with Lisa Whittle. Interested in going deeper on the topics we discuss on the show? Want to go behind the scenes of this ministry and stay up to date on the latest happenings? Want to read unfiltered writing from me on a regular basis? Head over to my Substack at letsbeclear.substack.com to join the private community where I share weekly insights, encouragements, and unfiltered thoughts on how to live the Jesus First lifestyle.